Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Maine Take. My name is Dana Connors, and I am pleased to be the host of this weekly program brought to you by the Maine State Chamber of Commerce. Each week, with the help of our guest, we hope to bring to you ideas, initiatives, issues at work in our state to improve the lives of Maine people, their livelihood, as well as growing our economy. Today, we're going to look at an issue that's very important to our state, contained within the highest priority of our strategic plan, and that is innovation. Before you shut the program down because you're not quite aware of what this subject is, we are going to talk with you about that. And the two special guests we have will help you understand it better. I repeat myself when I say it is so fundamental to the strength and the success of our economy that I hope you will stay with us. So what is innovation? Why is it important? And what are we doing to embrace it? Well, like I said, we have two very special people hard at work in this very critical area. And the first is Nadia Rosenthal. Nadia is a research scientist as well as the scientific director at Jackson Lab here in our state in Bar Harbor. And we also have the president, CEO of Maine Technology Institute, Brian Whitney. Brian has been someone as long as I've known him, and it's been a pleasure to be able to say it's been quite some time. He has been front and center when it comes to helping grow our economy in many different ways. But today, a very special way. So we're going to begin with Nadia Rosenthal. And last week, late in the week, we pre-recorded her presentation because she was not able to be with us on the show today. So please join me in welcoming Nadia Rosenthal from the Jackson Lab here in Bar Harbor. I'm pleased to welcome to our show today Nadia Rosenthal, who is a research scientist and a scientific director at Jackson Laboratory in our own Bar Harbor, Maine. Nadia, it's a pleasure to welcome you to us. I've got to say to anybody who's viewing us either today or later on after it's posted, that if you want to read or become aware of an impressive background, whether it's evaluated on basis of education, experience, or skill, you ought to check out our guest today. Nadia is all of those things, an incredible individual. We're so fortunate to have you on the show. And we so welcome you to our program today. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And in particular, because of the role that you play at Jackson Lab. And let me be the first today to say, at least, that we are so pleased to have Jackson Laboratory as a part of our culture, our economy, and the role that they play in our state is recognized and appreciated for the value they bring to our people of our state, our country, as well as a service that the entire world benefits from. So it is so great having you with us. We thank you for taking the time. We know that you're a busy person. And so grateful. Welcome.
Thank you, Dana. It's great to be here on the show.
Well, it's all our pleasure. Our program today speaks to the role of innovation in our quality of life here in Maine, but also to the success of our economy. Innovation really stands as a top priority in our state's 10-year strategic plan that was put together in 2019, tested, and proved all of its worth during the pandemic. And innovation, along with talent attraction, is positioned as one of the two foundational priorities that our economic success in this state is built on. Workforce, talent attraction, if you will, is one of those that's people don't have to understand because they live with its importance. They understand the shortcomings or the barrier that's we're presented with today. So it needs no uplifting, if you will, just solutions. But innovation, research and development, as valuable as it is to our economy and to our people, it's not as well understood and perhaps not as well appreciated as a result of that. When, as I said a moment ago, its value is not to be denied. It's extremely important. It's as simple as knowing that the value of finding new ways, new products, new ideas on a national level, it is told that contributes 50% of our growth in GDP. Yeah, there's no way you can overvalue the importance of innovation and R&D in the success of our state or our people's lives. And Nadia, you are the perfect person to help me move that issue forward and give people a better understanding than perhaps we have today. But I want to begin with the first question, which I found when I went on the website to check you out. As they say, I was so impressed. At first, I wasn't sure whether I should call you doctor, professor, artist. It could be any of those, and you clearly are distinguished in each and every one of those, not to mention the subject of today, which is the research scientist as well as a scientific director. So tell us about yourself. Tell us more that we'd love to know about such a talented person. I think we would call you a Renaissance person when you have both the creativity and the art as well as the science. But how'd you come to Maine? Tell us a bit about yourself, your experience and so forth.
Well, thank you so much. Those are very kind words. And I think I'm just not very disciplined, Dana. I actually started out as someone who was going to be an artist. I came from a background of musicians, and my father's a composer. I was born and raised in New York City. And the real change in my life came when I was 2, and my parents were looking for a place to spend the summer after my father got out of the Air Force. And someone told them about a house on one of the Cranberry Islands off the coast of Mount Desert Island.
Oh, nice.
And at 2 years old, I ended up on that island, and I've never really left because that's where my heart is. So, let's fast forward. As a molecular geneticist working with mice, I'd always had a connection to the Jackson Laboratory. And I even sat on their scientific advisory board for several years. And about 6 years ago, the president called me up and offered me this position. And I jumped at it and I never looked back. So now here I am living with my husband in my parents' house on this island. And in the summers, I commute to work by boat. You couldn't make it up.
Oh, my Lord, that is so intriguing. That's great. I also know from my reading that you hold a chair at the Imperial College of London. So when do you find time to do that as well? That's amazing.
Oh, I just got back from London 2 days ago. I go over there for a few days every few months to check up on my lab and to establish collaborations. I can tell you that since moving to JAX, I don't have to look for collaborators. They look for me. And it's not because of me, it's because of the power of what we do at the Jackson Laboratory. The people all over the world are interested in getting involved with what we do and having the access to some of the amazing resources that have been built here. I'm not just saying that because I work there. It's really spectacular what's happened.
Oh, you said it well, and it's so good to hear that because it does prove how people do see the value, the worth of Jackson Lab. It's not just something that some of us see here in Maine, it's worldwide. And the fact that they seek you out and search you is a statement worth repeating, marketing, and making sure everybody's aware. I think that's marvelous. I also have to say that you are the perfect prototype for that first priority that I mentioned of talent attraction, because you bring such a wealth of knowledge, experience, and you serve us well. But I do want to talk about your role as well as the role of your colleagues, because I know that anybody that goes to your facility in Bar Harbor, visit the laboratories, you get an incredible appreciation of the role that that biomedical institution, that through the help of mice, you're able to discover some solutions for disease. And besides that, I see it as a business with a team of professionals that work religiously, for lack of a better word, to try to meet that demand, that discovery, to help us and our lives live better, longer, and healthier. Tell us what some of those, in the spirit of innovation, tell us how research innovation is being undertaken today at Jackson Lab, and what you're working on within that sphere of effort.
Oh, I'd love to. I'll just take an example out of my own research, because I believe that to be a good director, you've got to have your hands wet in whatever it is that you're doing, and that you understand what it is that the colleagues that you are helping need. So when COVID hit 2 years ago, I pivoted away from my own work, which is on cardiovascular disease and regeneration, to think about what it was that the world needed the most. And what I realized was the world needed better models of COVID-19 to test therapeutics and understand the disease, which is not really one disease. I mean, it's a real mystery. We still don't understand why some people get sick and die. And even with vaccines, others will just walk away. How we can predict when someone's going to get sick, how severe is going to be their sickness, and how we could intervene. And we just didn't have any of the models we needed to test therapeutics, because all the mice that we had were responding the same way. And the reason was they were all clones of each other, because like purebred dogs, scientists have traditionally worked with just one strain of mice. And that doesn't quite make sense when you think about the human population, which is so variable. So we do experiments at JAX with special panels of mice that are as individual as patients. And it's thinking, if you think about, for instance, purebred dogs, American Kennel Club dogs, we've been working with those purebreds for 90 years. And what we're doing now is working with mutts, mouse mutts, sort of like labradoodles or cockapoos. They're much healthier, and they're highly variable in their response to disease, just like people, because they're genetically unique and distinct from each other. So we asked the question, maybe those mouse mutts would be what we need to really model COVID-19. And indeed, the results were spectacular. I mean, it took 2 years of research to get there, but what I'm giving you the synopsis is that we're now in a position where we can really identify the genetic drivers of the illness that we see after infection. And, you know, we see it in the labradoodle mouse, but not in the cockatoo mouse. So cockapoo mouse. So we are able now to unravel that genetics, because we have such powerful tools in the mouse, and really predict the consequences of human infection and provide the research community with accurate models of disease. And I have to tell you that this was all done on research funds that were generated by a single phone call that I made to the NIH at the beginning of the pandemic. I went to the chief of the Infectious Disease Center at NIH, essentially the fellow who works under Fauci to run the show. And I happened to know him, and I said, Steve, we need to move fast. We need to move fast to get these mice and model them and get them out to our research community. And he said, how much do you need? And within 3 weeks, I had the money. And the reason that that happened wasn't because of me. It was because he knew that because of the way JAX works, and because of the infrastructure that has been supported by the state, as well as by federal funds, we could actually get the job done. So that's just a tiny little vignette of how we really feel that innovation is something that drives this research institute, but it drives it because of the support we get.
Oh, it might be simple, it might be a small example, but it's tremendously significant in its impact and its value. Let me kind of pursue something that you referenced, and that is the role that grants play. You mentioned because of you didn't give yourself credit, which I've learned that you're very modest, and to no surprise, somebody of that success tends to be that way, or you'd like to see them that way, and you certainly are. But grants play such a significant part in what you do and your success story. And I think I read recently, speaking of the reference you just did, the NIH experience, that of 110 that was awarded to Maine, 72 million of that, was that the project that you're speaking of?
That didn't even include that project.
Didn't include that. Amazing.
Those
So,
are,
yeah,
sorry.
no, go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that those are grants that the faculty here that I support, they raise for all sorts of other applications, be it a new treatment for dementia, for addiction, therapies for degenerative diseases, cancer. I mean, I'm just running off a few of them. Again, the reason that we have such a high percentage of success is because when a reviewer reads that the mouse research is going to be done at the Jackson Laboratory in Bar Harbor, they don't even bother to ask the question, can they do it? The only thing they're worried about is it good science and will it make a difference? And so it really changes the way we get reviewed because of our reputation.
As significant as they are, do you also, grants that is, do you also go after like foundation dollars to help supplement grants? I know you've had a banner experience in grants, but are foundational dollars apparent to your program of work as well?
Absolutely. Specifically, I would say an example of that is in the rare disease area, where patients and their families are really strapped, trying to figure out a way to find researchers who are interested in working on a particular rare disease that a loved one might have. And those foundations are poignant, they're bake sales, they're marathons, they're raising money bit by bit, dollar by dollar. And when we get funds from those foundations, they have a particular poignancy for us and a particular importance for us, because what we want to do with that money is to make it go as far as we possibly can, and really to try to help the families. I could give you a number of examples of researchers here who are working with individual families and the foundations that support that research to try to understand better how there might be a cure. And I have to say, there are some really great success stories. So we are very, very keen to engage foundations in our work. And often they come to us because they know that we've got some unique opportunities here to help them out.
Yeah, I've got to believe that to have the equipment, the lab type of equipment that you need to really be able to maintain this success story that you're sharing with us, that there's a lot of dependency on those types of investments. And it's an area that I feel that state of Maine is falling short on, and it's sporadic in its success, and it hasn't been to the degree that any of us have really wanted. And I think it's partly due to the lack of appreciation, understanding. And of course, I'm talking about research and development bonds here in the state. Yes,
Sure.
we've had some, but boy, you really have to scratch to get them. And they're not on a continuous basis, which they need to be. Number one is we all need to do a better job of understanding and showing the appreciation, the impact that the role that R&D bonds can have in the success of what your effort. However, my question really speaks to the use of dollars. You mentioned grants, you mentioned foundational dollars. My suspicion is, based upon any activity I've had with grants in the past, they're earmarked for a certain use, and they may not be used for infrastructure, let's say, whereas R&D may be able to fill that particular need. So my question is, do you have to wrestle with the restrictions, as great as they are with grants or with foundations, as to their use and how the R&D provides perhaps that flexibility or that gap funding that you need?
Absolutely. There's no question that, to do audacious experiments like the one I just described, it's all very well to get NIH funding, to run the operations part of that, but I need the infrastructure. And it's a very special kind of infrastructure. And I have to say that JAX has been unbelievably fortunate in terms of, really cooperating with Maine Technology Institute's financial investments. They've supported strategic infrastructure projects that have helped JAX grow and increase our impact. We've got a wonderful grant, which was a voter-approved bond issue for a new building where we could actually analyze the mice. And that was absolutely critical to even the story I just told you just now about COVID. We're just launching a new innovative project. It's been a personal dream of mine for decades. I'm a mouse researcher. I'm actually a mouse fancier. And my first goal is to keep my mice healthy and stress-free. And that includes their housing.
Yeah.
So they love small spaces, but they need to be in a more natural setting where they don't interact with humans as much. So we get a chance to look at mousy behavior. And we can only do that at night because they're nocturnal. So we have cameras that are infrared that will pick up what they do at night. And then we use machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand what that actually means in terms of human health and disease. We'll talk about infrastructure. That takes huge, new and innovative infrastructure to be able to really mine that extraordinary resource we have, which is the life of a mouse. And that's something that we're very excited about because it will make every mouse and their and the investment we have in those animals go a lot further. So these are prototypes and they're expensive and they require specialized buildings, but we're also working on ways to innovate these discoveries and move them into the world as a business proposition through our JAX Mice and Services, who are also interested in bringing some of this new technology out of Maine and to the world. So it has an enormous multiplier effect when we get one of these innovation funds. It's an incredible opportunity. And I have to say, JAX is unique in the world. And one of the reasons that we're here is because of the support in Maine.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great to hear that support. And maybe with programs like this and others, we can raise the level of awareness and appreciation. So the bond issues become more predictable and it becomes even more a part of your financing needs or addressing financing needs. You did mention Maine Technology Institute as well as the asset fund that they put forward. They have proven to be a real benefit to the state of Maine. I can't say enough good about them. And Brian will be on the show to actually complement what you're saying as well. I want to, even though I've taken more of the time than we had set up, you are so rich in information and helpful that I wanted to continue and talk about just a couple other areas. Sure. One is the return on investment. When I just intuitively, when I understand what you do and do the research relevant to its impact, I am struck by, in fact, the obvious. We're talking about high quality jobs that pay great salaries. I think I read that was a little over 30% higher than the statewide average in Maine. You attract employees, according again to memory, from 13 counties and 123 communities. So your benefits reach into the economic side of the ledger as well. And in the same way that the supply chain, the companies that depend on you, there are like 300 and I think 84, 85 in that vicinity of companies that really provide a service that they wouldn't have if it weren't for Jackson Lab. So when we talk about return on investment in the economic sense of the word, it's very close to the association with quality of life, because those jobs, those salaries, those benefits, the reach into the community provides an incredible richness to those communities as well as to our state that I think maybe is sometimes overlooked. And I'd love your reaction to that, either to dispute it or to build upon it, and how that ties into the quality of life that we immediately associate with what you do because of the health benefits that you bring to our people.
I think that everything you say is absolutely true. there is an enormous emphasis on the return on investment amongst the research community, because we realize that we've been gifted with these extraordinary funds to do research, and it's not, you know, just for our fun. It's actually to increase the health of the community and of populations around the world. So when we think about what it is that we actually can do, what kind of multipliers we have with those grants, both infrastructural grants from the state, the federal grants that come through for the actual projects, it really does come down to whether we can do something more with that money than others might be able to do, because it's very competitive. And one of the reasons that I think we do attract the best and the brightest scientists from universities in the state and all over the world is because of the fact that they can try out their most ambitious experiments and work as fast as they can towards really understanding what it is that we can do to have a lasting impact on medicine and healthcare. And recently, I'm glad to announce that we've really put that effort into high gear in terms of finding ways in which we can do what we call translational research. And what I mean by that is research that is directly related to a cure or a therapy that would benefit patients directly, whether that's the development of a drug or the development of a new approach to therapy. That's something that really, I think, has been just sort of naturally assimilated by my faculty so that they all have that sense of responsibility. What that does, I think, is make it's a magnet for talent, because I think it invigorates people to think that they're part of that kind of an effort. I mean, I just had one of my animal technicians in my office before this program talking to me about how she is interested in how the mice are behaving, and what does that mean, and how can we actually translate that into something that could help humans. So even if you're doing something as simple as, you know, changing the boxes of a mouse and making sure that they're all okay, and that's basically our, you know, our entry level personnel. They need to know how important their work is for the overall product that we're trying to produce, which is improvements in healthcare. So it's a question of making sure that whatever we do is being done at the highest level. So we're not wasting time, we're not wasting people, and we're not wasting money, and most importantly, we're not wasting our mice.
Mm-hmm, for sure. I was struck by something you just mentioned or referenced a moment ago, and that is education. I wasn't aware until I read some background information how close you are to the university system. You work with them, you work with RULE, you have a program with the career technical centers, I believe in Hancock County, that you have internships. I do medical fellowships at Jackson Lab. There's a real richness that you provide in the educational community that probably is not as well known, but it's very significant.
Yeah, we have a very close and enduring relationship with the University of Maine, specifically, of course, the Bangor campus, which is nearest to us, but we also interact a lot with Augusta, with Portland. And just recently, I've become part of a new Institute of Medicine up in the Bangor and the Orono campus there, where we are building a high containment facility for studying infectious diseases like COVID, together with that, with the other faculty there who are working on these kinds of problems. It's crazy not to collaborate, especially in a place like Maine, where, you know, there aren't as many students as we'd like. So we want to get the best and the brightest of those students to come and train with us at JAX. And we're very proud to be part of that system. So I think that there's more to be done there. And I was actually just talking to the president the other day about this, because I think she and I share the same goal for for really making the most of what we've got together.
Knowing our president at university, there is no question that is true. One last question, and then reluctantly I'll let you go. Is that you'd mentioned the MTI grant, as I recall, that had to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, with your Ellsworth facility that you expect to open in 2023, and with it bring some new hires for employment there. What's next? What's on the horizon in terms of Jackson Lab and their unfolding story?
Well, actually, that's the Hewitt Center that was indeed funded through a Maine Technology Asset Fund grant. It's a new JAX vivarium in Ellsworth. It's actually been open now for a year or so, and we are in the process of expanding it. It has definitely invigorated the economy in Ellsworth. It was very exciting to have that opening there. And obviously by expanding what we're doing there, which is much more practical in terms of getting mice to the world. They don't have to go, over the bridge in Trenton and down and up and roundabout to get to Bar Harbor. If you've ever been there, there's a lot of potholes, and those mice don't like potholes. They'd much rather be in a combi that's heading straight for I-95. So it's been a real help for us to have that facility, and I think it's been great for the economy. Now, obviously, we want to keep building. And we are very excited about a new initiative that we are starting actually on campus right here in Bar Harbor to make more of what we've got here in terms of talent, to expand what we can do. And we're building a small prototype right now using modular building approaches to speed up the capacity for us to build new space for our mice, and to build it in a new way that could be conceivably much cheaper and exportable to the world. People are always nervous about using mice because they're so expensive. Well, let's say if we could make it easier for people to use mice and do it in a way that wasn't so costly, they might actually be able to use more of what we produce. So there's all sorts of things on the horizon like that we're very excited about developing. And in particular, we're very excited about expanding our educational programs. We're really trying very hard to increase our students and our postdoctoral fellows who come through. And anyone who's listening here, or anyone who has a son or a daughter who's got science on their mind, please send them around, because we're very excited about young energy and young talent.
Well, this has been, and from my point of view, an incredibly promising, helpful interview in terms of bringing forward the value, the importance, the impact that the work of Jackson Lab and you and your colleagues bring to our state, our people, but also to our country and around the world. And it all happens right here at Jackson Lab in Bar Harbor, Maine, soon to be Ellsworth. I can't thank you enough, Nadia. You have been a wonderful person to interview, to bring forth that value that we hope people will see. And when they talk about not just Jackson Lab, but the service that you bring, the value of innovation, the importance of investing in research and development on a regular basis. Boy, if they didn't get that message from you today, they'll never get it, because you are so inspiring in the way that you tell the story of Jackson Lab. Thank you so much for being with us today.
It was a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it was inspiring, and it's big spades to the value of innovation. And we certainly have our next guest who has an incredibly important role to play when it comes to innovation, when it comes to research and development, and when it comes to technology. It's hard to talk about one without including all three. That person is the president of Maine Technology Institute. Nadia referenced it more than once in terms of their help to what they're doing, their significance in terms of our state. And I'm pleased that President Brian Whitney is here with us to be able to take this conversation even further. So Brian, thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me, Dana. And before we get started, I just want to acknowledge yesterday's announcement about your retirement, and just want to commend you for 30 years of exceptional leadership at the Chamber. You've been a real beacon of collaboration and bipartisanship that serves as an example for all of us. And I want to thank you for all you've done for Maine's business community as well as our economy. So thanks so much.
Oh, you're very generous, and I appreciate it very much. It was a hard decision to leave a job that I really enjoyed so much, but just like they say in innovation, it's about new ways, new ideas. And you know what? Every time I say that, I say, Dana, that's possibly you. You need new ideas, new ways. And I think it was an act of conscience that said, you know what? That's probably true. And I'm going to hand it over, but it's been a pleasure. I mean, you do incredible work. I've known you in your role in economic development for as long as I've been in this position, and you are a star when it comes to that. And you have a responsibility that's paying off in spades, as we say, in terms of how it helps companies, its value as it relates to innovation, to research, to technology. And I just want to set it up a bit in this way before I ask you the obvious question of how you see innovation and your reaction to perhaps what Nadia had to say as well. But Maine Technology Institute, as I remember, was founded by the legislature and the governor in 1999. You came on board in 2014 and the summer of that year, and the action has really started since that time. A real credit to your leadership and the team that you have around you. Your mission is really to invest in innovation that really works for a prosperous Maine. And your focus is to stabilize, as I see it, to stabilize and grow Maine's high growth and technology-based businesses. I am so impressed when I know you're going to speak to this, but let me say it before you do, because I'm struck by the significance that today you have dispersed $290 million throughout Maine in distinct projects that really and it's about, as I recall, about 3,000 projects, and it's leveraged $1 billion in matching investments. And I say to myself, how many people really recognize that type of contribution, the role that technology institutes play in our economy? You know what I'd love to do? I'd love to take you, Nadia, and Joan Farini-Mundy, Vice Chancellor of Innovation, put you on a roadshow, go around the state talking about these areas, because it is so important. Innovation is so critical to our future success. Enough talking on my part. Welcome to the show. It's great having you on. And let me begin by you give us your rendition of innovation and the role that it plays before I ask you about the Maine's Technology Institute and the role that you play and some of the success stories that you could show.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Thanks. That was a great introduction about MTI and about innovation generally. You know, I look at innovation as, people looking at things in a different way, using their creativity and their new ideas to develop unique products or services, helping to foster more efficient processes, taking risks, adding value, really all about continuous improvement and iteration. MTI used to have a poster on the wall in Brunswick that said, "Innovate or die." And it was a little stark and scary. So it's no longer up. But the reality of the statement is that businesses that fail to innovate really risk stagnation and bankruptcy. So, MTI exists to help drive innovation. And fortunately, it's really a core part of the DNA of Mainers, right? I mean, the terms ingenuity and work ethic are really legendary traits of our workers and entrepreneurs. And we've always demonstrated a propensity for tinkering and inventing. And I mean, we have a name for it as well. It's Yankee ingenuity, right? I mean, we We've got farmers who've been tinkering with equipment throughout their lifetimes, fishermen doing the same. They're all tinkering, trying to make improvements. And that's really what innovation is all about.
Nadia had mentioned how you were so critical in their Ellsworth facility. Are you free to talk about some of the other investments that comprise that $200 million, 3,000 project type of scenario? Can you share any examples of what those dollars have gone towards?
Yeah, so the project Nadia referenced was a Maine Technology Asset Fund project. And as you mentioned, that fund is appropriated with bond money. So MTI was asked back in 2017, I think, was the last bond that passed. And that was a $45 million bond issue. And we dispersed that in 2 different rounds. And it's just amazing. And, you talk about unmet need. We had $45 million to disperse. We had $400 million in requests for the money. We had almost 200 proposals we received. Between the 2 rounds, we ultimately made 28 different awards all over the state, from Eastport to Ellsworth to Springvale, and everywhere in between. And between those 2 rounds, the $45 million is going to generate almost 7,000 jobs statewide and contribute more than 1.4 billion with a B, $1 billion economic impact. So, it's just amazing the impacts associated with research and development and innovation funding. And that's just from one particular bond fund. MTI has its core funding that we allocate every year as well.
But those dollars you've given out are there. I think I mentioned it when I set this part of the program up, but it leverages private dollars as well. So do all of them have that cost sharing responsibility that goes with your investment?
Yeah, so MTI, part of our mandate is we require all of our awardees to have some skin in the game. So they've got to put in at least $1 for every dollar we put in. And again, just looking back at the 2 rounds of bond funding that we dispersed, I think the first 40-something million generated, can't remember, $192 million in matching funds. And, just using our core funding, we also obviously require match. And this past year, we deployed 9.4 million, and that generated $74 million in private sector matching funds. So it's really, I think it's doing what lawmakers and the governor intended when it was created back in 1999, because it's incentivizing the private sector to conduct more research and development and innovation.
So do companies, this is kind of one of those fundamental questions, do companies come to you with a good idea, or do you have a earmark of dollars and you say to industry sector, we have this to do certain things? How does the process unfold?
Yeah, great question. So it's probably important to let people know that, MTI is a unique public-private partnership. We get all our money from the state of Maine, and we allocate it in the state's 7 targeted technology sectors. We encourage interested entrepreneurs to go to our website at mainetechnology.org and fill out a brief intake form on our website, which basically introduces them to us, tells us who they are, what their idea is, what they're looking for, funding, support. And that really starts the process with them. MTI initiates our conversation. An investment officer is assigned to work with that entrepreneur, and they will help to determine if they're ready for us, if they're a good fit for us, And if so, we'll invite them to apply for funding, and they can be eligible for anything from up to $100,000 in grant funding, $500,000 in low-cost patient debt, or even equity investments. We make, we take equity stakes in some companies as well.
Well, I hope businesses and people in general are listening to this program today just because of the opportunity it presents to them, or watch it when we post it on our website, because it is very, very rich in opportunity for businesses at any time, particularly at the time we're in today. I want to also, though, move on, although it's not a different subject, for you it's a little different responsibility, because the governor has reached out to you and to partner with certain departments as she has distributed some of the jobs and recovery dollars as part of the plan. Tell us about, there are 3 different areas, as I recall, that you are responsible for. And the last one that I referenced, the Prime, is one that was just announced last week. And I found that to be very encouraging for businesses today to help recover, but also move into this new innovative technology-driven economy.
Yeah, so as you referenced, the American Rescue Plan Act that was passed by Congress last year sent $1 billion in discretionary funding to the state, and the governor rolled that out in her Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan. And in that plan, there's 112 different initiatives, and MTI has been asked to assist with several of those. One is the Forestry Recovery Initiative. That's a $20 million initiative. We opened that up for applications in the fall. The phase 1 closed in February, and we ended up making 224 awards to deserving forest products businesses. And that first phase totaled $6 million. So there's another 14 million to come that we'll be launching probably the second phase this summer, really looking for innovative, forward-looking projects in the forest products industry. We're also currently administering the Seafood Dealer and Processor Program on behalf of the Department of Marine Resources, and that's a $16 million program. And the application deadline for that program closes this week. So on Thursday, April 28th, that's the deadline for the Seafood Dealer and Processing Program. And then you mentioned Prime, Dana, and that's a almost $40 million program that again was announced by the governor last week. It's geared towards tech businesses that have suffered adverse impacts from the pandemic. We're looking for applicants that have a solid plan to use innovation to recover and become stronger, more resilient entities. And we're accepting applications for phase 1 of the Prime program until May 19th. And the Maine Jobs and Recovery Plan specified that we run a competitive process, that we look for applicants to be doing business in those 7 targeted technology sectors. Again, matching funds are required, and awards we anticipate being anywhere from $49,000 to $400,000. So yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, that's great work. So important work. Is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you would like to bring to the attention of those who may be watching this show? Just because of, in my opinion, the need to really put a spotlight on the incredible work that you're doing and how it applies to businesses that are, in this instance, the Prime, recovering from the pandemic, but also looking to the future, because your work is so vital to the success of our economy that the more that we can illustrate the value, the presence of the dollars that can go into your company, the more we serve the economy. So is there something that we haven't talked about that would help illustrate that or add something?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if you read Steve Case's book, The Third Wave, came out about 6 or 7 years ago. But I reference it often because it encapsulates MTI's mission. In his book, he said, it will always be government that defines, either through action or inaction, the environment in which entrepreneurship exists. He said, as at its best, government can create an environment where innovation and entrepreneurship can thrive, not by providing the certainty of success, but by mitigating risk and expanding the scale of opportunity. And that, in my view, is really the role MTI plays in the state of Maine. You know, it's a government-funded entity, and we're helping to expand the scale of opportunity by sharing in and helping to mitigate risk for entrepreneurs.
You said it well, my friend, and that is really the secret sauce that is needed to help move us forward. And I can't thank you enough for the job that you're doing, for the effort behind that, and for the significance of the return on investment when all of those dollars are put to good use. So thank you so much for being with us, and keep up the good work.
Hey, it's an honor. Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure as ours. The takeaway this week, I will be briefer. We wanted to spend as much time with our guests as possible because they are at the center of our efforts to move this economy forward. They are one of two, as I'll mention in a moment, that speak to the strategic plan's primary focus to move our state forward, to address the lives and the livelihood of Maine people. So as we close out the program for this week, as we focus on the role, the importance of innovation, research and development, and technology, consider this, that innovation represents 50% of the growth in our gross domestic product, 50% of the growth. That the majority of new jobs in the next 10 years do not exist today. The majority of new jobs in the next 10 years do not exist today. But those that will survive will be transformed because of technology. And when you look at where the state stands today, and studies point out that there are 4 thematic areas that Maine is well positioned for. One is because of these, because of the current strengths that we have, because of the global demand for our products, because of the potential for quality job creation, we stand in a very good spot. That same study said, look at Maine's food and marine industry. Look at our forest products, as Brian has spoken to. Look at our technology, our technical services, and also our manufacturing economy, and see these business sectors emerge. The bio-based industries like biomed, biotechnology, biopharma. Look at the advanced materials, the role that they play. Look at composites, look at precision manufacturing, and even agriculture. Where I grew up in Aroostook County is not the way it was. Farm to table is the new term. Look at fishing. Even though there are challenges, aquaculture will make a strong stand in this state. Yeah, when you look at where we are today, let's give ourselves some credit. When you look at what these two people, along with our University of Maine, has for capacity, we should take credit. We should be proud of that. But clearly, the bottom line to all of that is that the potential and the need for innovation, research and development, technology is not to be denied. There is a case to be made for new ways, new ideas, new products, new services, new process. And you know what? That means we need to embrace all 3 of those, the innovation, R&D, and certainly technology. Embrace it. Work towards supporting it. Recognize it as a growth industry, and most of all, invest in it. When those 3 work together, the future is ours. Actually, all 3 make the impossible possible. That is the takeaway for this week. I thank our guests for being with us and being so informative and so important to the success of our economy, measured by today, but most certainly for the future. Above all else, as I end every show, when a world we can be anything, be kind to yourself and be kind to one another. Stay safe, be strong. See you back here next week. Take care. Bye-bye.